Video games have long been associated with a myriad of health issues. Inattentiveness, poor eyesight, obesity, and an inability to multitask are all issues that mothers and misinformed lobbyists have used to dissuade children from playing games. Some people even believe that certain video games will lead to more violent behavior in kids. While an excessive, unhealthy amount of time spent in the virtual world can have negative results, the simple truth is that video games played in moderation are highly beneficial to the development of the brain and cognition, and not just in young children, but in adults as well. According to NPD, a market research company, 91% of children in the United States play video games, which is approximately 64 million children. That is children between the ages of 2 and 5. This is an increase of 13% from 2009. The population of children in that age group has only increased about 1.34% since 2009, which isn't enough children to compensate for this increase in kids that are playing video games, which means that over time it shows that more children are starting to play video games instead of just more kids coming into the age group and playing video games. With an overwhelming majority of children playing video games, there is an understandable amount of concern among parents related to the risks of playing video games. This is similar to a controversy surrounding another form of entertainment that was popular among kids in the 1980s, which is Dungeons and Dragons. D&D, as it is known, was believed to be a satanic game, with some parents going as far as to claim that the game encouraged satanic worship and the use of black magic in the young culture of the United States. So an example of this is the case of Patricia Pulling. So following the tragic suicide of her troubled son, known as Bink to his friends, in 1982, wherein he shot himself in the chest with a handgun, Patricia Pulling became convinced that Dungeons and Dragons was to blame for her son's death. Pulling said in a lawsuit she filed against her son's school and where he played D&D with a group that he'd come home the day he killed himself convinced that a curse had been put on him during the game and took his life as a result. This, of course, was not the case, and the lawsuit was thrown out because none of the other kids in his D&D group had ever heard him mention anything about any curses in the game or without the game. However, the damage had been done. Mrs. Pulling started an anti-occult advocacy group called Bothered by Dungeons and Dragons, which lobbied relentlessly to regulate role-playing games in the United States, and the entire country was soon convinced that the game was somehow evil and deeply damaging to any children who played it. The following decades have proven all of this incorrect, but it has some striking similarities with the perception of video games today. Many parents and government officials believe that violent shooter games make children more aggressive and violent, a stance that is hotly debated today, but that is generally believed to be false. In 2015, the American Psychiatric Association published a policy statement claiming that violent video games led to violent behaviors, but a large contingent of researchers who are focused on pediatric and adolescent health disagree. A group of 230 scholars from universities across the globe published an open letter in 2013 calling the APA stance of violent video games misleading and alarmist, and many of those same scholars spoke out after the 2015 statement was published. So in my own childhood, my mother used to warn my brothers and me that playing video games would make our eyesight a lot poorer. This statement fooled us as children. It led to us having restricted times for playing video games, but it has since been proven incorrect. According to a recent study by Nature Neuroscience, video games, particularly the fast-paced shooter games, lead to improved eyesight capabilities, specifically our contrast sensitivity function, or CSF, which helps our general eyesight, but especially our ability to see, process, and track objects. They said in a 2009 study, CSF improvements are typically brought about by correction of the optics of the eye with eyeglasses, contact lenses, or surgery. We found that the very action of playing video games also enhanced contrast sensitivity, providing a complementary route to eyesight improvement. So this same study found that action games improve our other elements of eyesight as well, including the ability to track multiple objects at the same time and the ability to simultaneously pay attention to multiple fast-paced events. Cognitive researcher Daphne Bavelier, in a series of studies she conducted, found that video game players consistently outperformed non-gamers in areas such as multitasking, tracking multiple objects, differentiating between shades of gray, reading, and aspects of spatial reasoning. Some other concerns related to video games are that they lead to children secluding themselves and developing antisocial behaviors. However, a study done by researchers at Georgia State University found a correlation between playing online games and stronger teamwork and social skills. So, I believe that all things require moderation. A glass of wine on occasion can cut your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 25%. But if you binge an entire case of wine over the weekend, you're going to end up destroying your liver. Video games in moderation can be good for you, but if they are overused and played too much, especially in early developmental years, they can have a negative impact. So I believe that it is important to allow children to play video games because studies have shown that it can improve their cognitive reactions and their ability to process, multitask, and to do all sorts of other things. The key is just finding a nice balance and playing them in moderation. Thanks.